following is a video presentation of an evening worship service at Orrville Baptist Church.
Jesus Obviously, that's true with Sunday morning, and going through Acts. But even in Wednesdays, we've been going through spiritual gifts, and we did a little intermediate before we jumped into the Sermon on the Mount, and so we've really been in the New Testament quite a bit. Even on Sunday evenings, going through some epistles, we're going through a little bit of John, and tonight we're going to the Old Testament, and I wish I could remember the statistic. They did a Pew Research, which is a great resource in looking at what Christians and churchgoers kind of feel about some subjects, and they give some honest answers. I'm not going to say it, because I can't remember what it was. They did a survey on pastors. It was overwhelming. In the Old Testament, when you talk about a ratio of percentages, very low spoken, very rarely preached on. And I'm a little surprised I haven't done as much as I have. I've primarily been an Old Testament guy, so to speak. That was part of what kind of got me interested in looking at biblical studies and that kind of thing, and just seeing the history behind it. It's a real shame. It's rarely touched in many churches. And in fact, I've heard of actual churches that will say, well, we don't look at the Old Testament because we're a New Testament church, therefore we don't need to. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's so sad. I don't understand that, but nevertheless, it is true, and I think tonight is so appropriate, so very appropriate. As you go ahead and start turning there, we're going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 8. I just lied to you. We're not going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 8. We're going to go through 1 Samuel chapter 8 in its entirety. Yes, the entire thing. And we'll make it, I promise. We will make it. We'll go through the entire thing tonight. So we're not just going to jump in it and do a little section. We're going to walk through the entire chapter. Again, this is not how I typically operate. Just last week I did 2 verses, and tonight there's a lot more than 2. What I want to do tonight is think about this in terms of Christmas, and look at it in terms of Christmas and the coming holiday season of Christmas. And so we're going to be in 1 Samuel 8. We're going to walk through the entire thing, and what I want to do tonight, which I really hope is something I'm letting happen every time we gather, I want the text to speak for itself. And I've got some things I'm drawing out of this, of course, but I really want the text to speak for itself tonight. I want to see the character of God. I want to see the love of God. I want to see the promises of God, all of that, and how it ties into Christmas. And so that's what we'll do tonight. I promise you, it sounds daunting. My goal, yes, men, is to get out even maybe a minute or 2 early. We'll see what happens. So let's jump right in. Let's jump right to it. No silly introductions. I got no silly illustrations. Let's go straight to the Word of God and see what is it that God is doing. 1 Samuel 8. Starting in verse 1, I'm going to go through it as chunks. So first, verses 1 through 3. Here's what the Word of God says. And it came about when Samuel was old that he appointed his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second, Abijah. And they were judging in Beersheba. His sons, however, did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after dishonest gain, and took bribes and perverted justice. Now, I'm not going to go into a ton of background information just for the sake of our time, because I want us to have plenty of time to walk through the entire chapter, but for the most part, we know that Samuel was a great judge. A very noble man, very good man, and Israel enjoyed prosperity during this time, for most of this time. And of greater importance, I think the most important thing to think about with Samuel, he was judged during a time that kept Israel's heritage and lineage pure. If that's the correct word, I guess. Really strong emphasis on making Israel stay Israel and be Israel. He was a godly judge, and he walked close to God. Very admirable, very good, noble man. But here's the thing, he was not perfect. Samuel was not perfect, and he was not without sin. And sadly, you see a major problem in those first two verses. I mean, this is quite an understatement that I'm about to make, but Israel was very special. Israel was very unique. How many countries can you name that are governed by God? And I'm not talking about just, God holds us in his hands. Of course, we understand what that means. But I'm talking specifically governed by God. You don't see that. That's Israel. Israel has a very unique relationship to God. I mean, that's an unbelievable thing to talk about, even think about. Talk about who rules Israel. It's God. Yes, we are all under his control. I hope you understand what I mean when I say they have a very unique relationship, very special. And so we're not talking about a country that holds godly principles. We're not talking about a people or a nation that are quote, good morally in terms of biblical morals. We're talking about a nation. We're talking about a people that are ruled by God. And God appointed leaders for Israel. And during this time, Israel was coming off a time of having judges. Depending on who you talk to and all that kind of stuff, those people will say Samuel was the last of the judges. He was the last one. He was the last of the judges. He would, in my interpretation, he's the very last of the true judges. I think that's accurate to say. So where did he go wrong? What happened? We say, what went wrong with Samuel's time as a judge? It says that he appointed the judges himself, and he chose his own sons. Before this, God appointed judges for Israel. And as they had need, God would grant a judge. Most often during times of combat or war or oppression or invasion, that kind of thing. God would have a judge brought up in Israel, and that judge would speak for God, interpret the law for God, give the message of God, guide the country. But, however, it was God who appointed these judges. It was always God appointing judges in Israel. And now we have a judge who is showing something that we call a very funny word. It's called nepotism. Ever seen that word before? Anybody ever worked for someone before and your boss might have a little son or a little niece or a nephew or a brother-in-law, and somehow, magically, even though that person has no experience whatsoever, they get a raise. Or they get a higher position than you. And you're wondering, how did that happen? Well, there you go. It's called nepotism. Just because they're related, that person gets a very nice, comfy chair, and it's not very encouraging, is it? Makes you feel kind of lousy when you see it happen. You feel kind of rotten. Especially when they're not qualified. Makes you feel like you're the lowest of the low. And so, unfortunately, Samuel has appointed judges in the form of his own sons. Brought his own sons in to be judges. He had no right to. He had absolutely no right to be appointing any judges in Israel. And yet here he is, appointing his own sons. Was it his shot to call? That belongs to God. That shot to call belongs to God alone. So let's read verse 3 once more. His sons, however, did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after dishonest gain and took bribes and perverted justice. They may have been Samuel's sons, but they did not share Samuel's character. They did not share his same values. They were schemers. They were more politicians than actual judges. It's a real shame. And so you read verse 3 and you think a little bit about modern politics. And listen, this is not a Republican versus Democrat type speech. The sad reality is most politicians are bald anyway. It doesn't matter what side you're on. I hate to say it, but we think that modern politics being all, how can I be nice tonight? Let's just play it safe. Dirty. We think that's more of a modern invention. Look back in the scriptures. Been here for a long time. Dirty politics. People that can be bought, people that are fueled by the things that can be offered. It says they turned aside after dishonest gain and took bribes and perverted justice. These men were rotten. They were absolutely rotten. They were not righteous judges. They were politicians that could be bought. It's nothing new. This has been going on for a long, long, long time. And we'll see another example of it in 1 Samuel 8 with his sons. Continue on verses 4 through 6. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. And they said to him, Behold, you have grown old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king for us to judge us, like all the nations. But the thing was displeasing in the sight of Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed to the Lord. Now listen, a lot of people read that and they say, Oh, Israel, you just had to mess up, didn't you? You just had to ask for a king. How terrible of you to ask for a king. And I'm telling you right now, that's not really the problem. The problem is not so much that Israel asked for a king. That's not the main issue here. That's not the big idea we need to be fixating on. God actually speaks quite early. You find it in Deuteronomy. Speaking of a king to come that they'll ask for. This is not some kind of surprise. It's nothing that's out of left field. It's prophecy. You can find it in chapter 17 of Deuteronomy, very early on. You'll see the mention of this king. Essentially verbatim what they asked for. Almost in the same language exactly that they asked for. One day Israel will ask for a king, and they'll ask to be ruled. That's not the biggest issue. Look at the very tail end of verse 5. I'll read it one more time. It says, Now appoint a king for us to judge us. And at that point, if you stop there, there's no problem. There's no problem with that at all. Now appoint a king for us to judge us. And then what comes next to finish that sentence that Israel does mess up? How does it end? Like all the nations. There you go. There's the problem. That's the problem right there. They were not asking God to grant them a king. They were demanding a king instead of God. They were not asking God to give them a king that could have this great relationship with God and pass on their guidance, their wisdom, all that. No. They were not asking for a king under God. They were asking for God to step aside and give us a king. Major, major difference. That's the issue. Not that they wanted a king, but that they disregarded God. Wanted God on the sidelines. I used to be a really big car guy, and as I matured in my faith, and honestly, this is kind of all encompassing with my calling and my testimony. I used to be very, very distracted by the world. There's nothing wrong with cars, but I used to be really, really big into cars, and I still like cars to an extent. And I think exotic cars are neat. They're pretty to look at, but they really don't do anything for me, to be quite honest. And people say, what's your dream car? You're thinking Ferrari and Lamborghini and all this kind of stuff. And those are fine. Honest to goodness, if I could pick right now, what's my dream car? I would pick a 1966 Pontiac GTO Earthshifter Tri-Power Triple Black. The most beautiful car to ever exist. You can't beat it. And in this dream scenario, because I'll never have one. In this dream scenario, let's just say that I'm gifted one. I'm gifted a 1966. That the perfect year of the goat, by the way, that's what they call the goat. It doesn't need any gas. You have to change the oil. The tires are indestructible. No flats. No mechanical problems will ever happen to that car. The glass will never shatter. People can beat it with a baseball bat. Nothing, no dents, no dings, no nothing. You don't have to use any money to use that car. It's just a magic 1966 Pontiac GTO. And I get in it every single day, and I'm so happy, and I'm so content, and I love life. Understanding, wow, what a gift this is. This is incredible. What an amazing gift I've been given. And the more and more I drive, I start seeing people on the sidewalk riding bicycles. So that's strange. A lot of bicycles out today. And the more and more I drive, I start noticing, where are the cars? There's no other cars on the road. And then over time, it finally hits me. I'm the only one. Everyone else has got crusty, rusty, broken down bicycles. Because they left them out in the rain, they're barely getting by. Some people are having to push it to the street. But everybody's got a bicycle. I'm the only one with a car. And my conclusion is, this car is junk. I need to get rid of this. I need to get me a bicycle and be on the side of the road with all the other people. Now you hear that and you're saying, are you nuts? Are you crazy? You got your dream car that doesn't need any money. Yeah, but I need to be like the world. Right? I need to be like everybody else. See everybody else with their nice, old, broken down bicycle? That's what I need. I need to be like the world. But in reality, I got everything I could ever desire and more and then some. Gifted right to me, but yet I need to be like everyone else. I need to not be set apart. I need to blend in with the world. As stupid as that analogy sounds, that's as stupid and foolish as Israel's been. Had everything right there. Direct communication with Yahweh. I mean, think about this for a moment. Could speak to Yahweh. Saw all the things in their history. Knew of his presence and went to idols, went to Baal worship, and then come to the conclusion that we don't need God anymore. Give us a human king. How foolish. How absolutely foolish it is of Israel. Unreal to even think that. And the sad reality of that story is it happens every second of every minute of every hour of every day in this life. Right now it's happening. There are multitudes, and I mean multitudes, not minority, majority of people doing the exact same thing, knowing I can enter into a relationship with Christ, God in the flesh, but yet, you know what? I'm more interested in myself. I'm more interested in the things of the world. I'm more interested in fulfilling things for myself than understanding and knowing the one who has fulfilled life for me. Every tick of the second, you see this happening in the world. Choosing things of the world other than God. How foolish, how insane, how unbelievable, and yet true. Absolutely true. Desires of things of the world over the infinite majesty of God. Sounds crazy, and yet we know it all too well to be true. Verse 6 once more. But the thing was displeasing in the sight of Samuel, and they said, give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed to the Lord. And for all his faults in his decision to appoint his sons as judges, for all of his imperfections in making such a terrible choice, he does the right thing here. He prays to the Lord. He goes to God. For all of his terrible decisions about nepotism, he goes back to God. This is where I want to hear something very, very familiar. I've said it many times in this pulpit. One of my all-time, quote, Trey sayings. It's a very good reminder. First, read verses 7 through 9. I told you we're going to move fast. We're going to make this whole chapter. Verses 7 through 9, then we'll get to the saying. The Lord said to Samuel, listen to the voice of the people in regard to all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. Like all the deeds which they have done since the day that I brought them up from Egypt, even to this day, in that they have forsaken me and served other gods, so that they are doing to you also. Now then, listen to their voice. However, you shall solemnly warn them, and tell them of the procedure of the king who will reign over them. Here's my familiar phrase. I use it all the time. One of the ways in which God judges people is by giving them exactly what they want. People miss this all the time, and God does this all the time. One of the most famous ways God judges people, and it's not by throwing lightning bolts. It's not by just causing an earthquake. One of the ways he judges people is by handing them over to their desires and saying, sure, go ahead. You want it, you got it. If that's what you want, sure. Still happening today. He knows our hearts. He listens to us. He will hand us over. Not just us, the world. All of us. We're all under this judgment of giving us exactly what we want. You know, you guys know how I feel about false teachers. You know they stick with me. And I don't really hold back on how I feel on false teachers. And I hear many people say, well, those poor people, they have no idea what they're sitting under with that teaching. Oh, if I could just reach those people, if I could just reach out to them, and if I could just say, hey, look, you don't need to listen to that false teacher. You poor people, listen to me, understand this. God is handing them over because that's what they want. That's the sad pity of false teachers. Not just that false teachers have been hooked. The really sad reality of false teachers is that all those people sitting in that teaching, God has said, sure, you want it, you have it. You go for it. You want to hear that? By all means, go for it. Go for it. That's the sad truth. That's the incredibly sad truth. And do I pity those people who sit in that teaching? Absolutely. But guess what? They want it. They desire it. They ask for it. Want the ears being tickled. All of that kind of stuff. This is what God does. He doesn't tempt. He does cast. He does not tempt. He does not cause us to sin. He does not make us sin. But listen, if you desire sin over God, guess what? He loves you way too much to keep you from it. He loves us so much that if you want to choose sin over Him, He'll say, have at it. You want it, you got it. I don't care if you're lost or saved. You desire that over me, all yours. It's all yours. And God reminds Samuel, this is not about you, it never was. They're not asking for a king because of the judges or your sons being judges. They know that they don't want that. And they don't want you. It's because they don't want me. That's the heart of this. They don't want me. The Lord even says, this is not new. They've been doing this since Egypt. Go back to Egypt. I'm used to this. That's what the Lord is saying to Samuel. They've always had times they desire something other than me. This is no different. And despite my faithfulness, what are they? They're unfaithful. That's scary to me. That's very scary to me. Very applicable to us today. We can better understand that our motives and our desires need to be pure. Lest we find ourselves desiring something over God and Him handing us over to it. He will. He will. If that's the case, so be it. And so our desire to be godly, because God isn't opposed to handing us over in judgment to Him. And I don't know about you, but based on the track record of the human race, our desires are often pretty rotten. We're not perfect as Christians. Sometimes we fall. Sometimes we still sin. We mess up. We have to repent, ask for forgiveness, and seek forgiveness. There are times where we can be honest with each other and say, did you desire something over God today? And you can say, yeah, I did. Did you fall into it? Yeah, I did. We're not immune. We're not perfect. We must watch our heart. We must check our hearts and see our motives, and are they pure or not? And in verse 9, God instructs Samuel to offer them a warning. I'm not going to get into a major breakdown, but I'm not going to skip any lines. We're going to read that warning. I know, a lot. Verses 10 through 18. I want us to read those together. I want us to see this warning that the Lord gives to Samuel to give to Israel. Starting in verse 10. So Samuel spoke all the words of the Lord to the people who had asked of him a king. He said, this will be the procedure of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and place them for himself in his chariots and among his horsemen, and they will run before his chariots. He will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and of fifties, and some to do his plowing and to reap his harvest and to make his weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will also take your daughters for perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and your vineyards and your olive groves and give them to his servants. He will take a tenth of your seed and of your vineyards and give to his officers and to his servants. He will also take your male servants and your female servants and your best young men and your donkeys and use them for his work. And he will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his servants. Then you will cry out in that day because of your king whom you have chosen for yourselves, but the Lord will not answer you in that day. That is brutal. That is brutal. This is the warning God is delivering over to Israel. You want it, you got it. And guess what? This is what it's going to look like, and this is the price you will pay apart from me. You want human hands guiding you? You want human hands as your guide? He will oppress you. He will take from you. He will line your men in front of chariots as cannon fodder in war. They will be instruments of war and nothing more. You'll all be slaves. This is what will happen to you. And the really, really, really sad part is verses 19 through 22. Nevertheless, the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel, and they said, "No, but there shall be a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles." Isn't that sad? Isn't it just so sad, so heartbreaking? We no longer desire you, God, but we will have a human king, and he's going to be our victor, our champion, our warrior. He will go out before us. He'll be the one to fight for us. Verse 21, now after Samuel had heard all the words of the people, he repeated them in the Lord's hearing. The Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to their voice and appoint them a king." So Samuel said to the men of Israel, "Go every man to his city." With that, we actually finished chapter 8. We know what happens. We know the rest of the story. We know where this kind of ends, and this story honestly doesn't end with sorrow and sadness. You stop here, Mike. The story doesn't end with eternal punishment and God abandoning his people. If you stop right here, if you stop at 1 Samuel 8, verse 22, and you don't go any further, it's a story of unfaithfulness on the part of Israel, and that's about it. If you stop right here and don't go anywhere else, and don't look ahead, this story is nothing more than a story of unfaithfulness. But in reality, 1 Samuel 8 is a story of what? It is a story of God's faithfulness. Once more, all throughout the Old Testament you find faithfulness. And it's not on the part of his people or Israel, it's on the part of God. It's faithfulness in the hands of a merciful, loving God. And yes, God judged Israel by giving them what they wanted. But he didn't leave them there. He didn't leave them there, even though they deserved it. They deserved to be abandoned forever. He remained faithful. And there was a coming king for them. And no, I'm not talking about David. There was a king coming for Israel. I'm not talking about Saul. I'm not talking about David. There's another king coming. A king came in the most humble of means, in the middle of nowhere, seemingly a regular child, but in actuality being the Son of God. If you stop at 1 Samuel 8 and right at that moment you say, well, those poor people in Israel left alone in their unfaithfulness. And yes, they are unfaithful, but God is ever faithful. And when the world least deserved it, God sends a king in the most unusual of ways, in the most strange of manners. Understand, Jesus was not a backup plan. Jesus is not a life raft, is what I usually use to give this illustration. God did not panic and say, "Oh dear, what will I do?" Jesus did them. No. Before the foundations were even put into place, before everything was set, before everything was formed, and before everything was even made, before the very foundations of the x-axis and the y-axis and all constellations and stars and galaxies and universes and planets, before the very structure of the molecules to make oxygen were even formed, the cross was the plan. Has always been the plan. Always. Always. The Lord, he puts up with unfaithfulness, he puts up with wickedness, he puts up with sin. Still doing the same thing today. He knows what wickedness is. You know why? Because he knows our hearts. And because he knows our hearts, he knows our desires. Knows everything about us. And yet, despite all of it, he's what? He's faithful. Does that not make you rejoice? Man, I can't speak for you, but I know myself. I know my human heart. And so when I hear the words, God is faithful to me despite me, and despite me being in the way, I have to give praise. I know myself. I know who I am. And because That's the scariest thing to me. To know who I am. And to see my unfaithfulness. And to see his faithfulness. Same thing with Israel here. We don't want you. We want a king. And yet, they never asked for it. They thought they'd get their own kind of king. He sends a different kind of king. A king that no one expected, a king that no one thought of. And so God, in his infinite mercy, in his infinite love, in his infinite grace, the king is sent. And when the world, when Israel, when they awaited their physically mighty warrior king, when they awaited their pompous politician to lead them to national glory and to national prominence, God had something else in mind. They expected someone to bring the battle to the enemies and to conquer their oppressors. And he sends a baby. A young baby, as you see in this nativity scene. Not put purple robes and jewels and crowns and scepters and sapphires and diamonds and emeralds, and yet he's worth more, all of them combined. Wasn't born into that. Born into humble means. And God sends that king instead of the one that they expected. And so yes, God judged Israel by giving them exactly what they wanted. That was the same thing to us. But in this instance, he sent the only king. He didn't send a king. He didn't send a type of king. He didn't send a version of a king. He sent the only king, the supreme king. The one and only king. The king who was more interested in feeding the poor than fattening the rich. A king who was more interested in loving the outcast and rubbing shoulders with the religious elite. A king more interested in speaking the truth than living in safety and security. A king that did not come to give men and women a good life, but a king that has come to give life itself. Not just a good life, but the only life. Life apart from death. And 1 Samuel 8 doesn't point us to judges, doesn't point us to Saul, doesn't point us to David, it points us to this King, Jesus, born as a child, a baby, in the most strange of ways. That's what 1 Samuel 8 points us to, the promised King who has come to us, to offer himself as a sacrifice for many. That we too, even today, tonight, we still saved. Doesn't matter how long you've been saved, you can still boast in his work that while we were yet sinners, what? Christ died for us. We just expect so much, even still today. God will do this, and God will do this, and God will do this, and God will do this. You better start understanding, all of us, how God operates. We need to understand what God does, and his character, and his love, and his might. But the way he operates is while we're not looking, miracles happen, incredible things happen, his plan happens. But all the world looked over and expected one thing and got life instead. As you go through the Old Testament, we might do a couple more of these. Not tonight, we're done here tonight. I'll do a couple more of these as we lead into Christmas, but I pray this would be our mindset. I really pray this would be our mindset. You know, we're going into Christmas. I'm guilty of this as well. I think probably all of us are to an extent. We do get our eyes off of what this month is about, even though we might not want to admit it, because we're humans. And to be frank, we do this most months of the year already. We get our eyes off what's important. Not just Christmas time, year round. We are people. We mess up. We miss the mark a lot. We need to be praying that God will give us this understanding and this ability to see what he's doing in the world. To see what he's doing as 2017 closes and 2018 comes. Both in the world at large, but also right here at Orrville Baptist Church. Be asking and seeking and praying, asking God, what is it you have for us? What is in store for us? What is in store for me as an individual and as a body of Christ? Make sure our motives are pure, that our desires are based on Him, not our own flesh, that we would never miss out on God's hand at work amongst us and in our midst. And all the while we know that we are unfaithful, let's give God praise and worship Him for His faithfulness. He's so good.